Hey, my name is Ayush Mishra and this is my application for MLSA. In this particular video, I'll be teaching you guys KMeans clustering, which is an unsupervised machine learning algorithm. As the name suggests, in this, what we do is we take the data points which are present in a plane and we group them or cluster them into separate groups, right? So I'll just show you one example, and this pretty much answers all your queries related to k-means. So what we have here is we have circles and crosses. These are our two classes, right? And what we have done is we have grouped them into their specific categories. So as you can see, there are no x in this group and no zeros in this group, which means that we have grouped them together. So this is basically the idea of how k-means work. Now let's take a very simple example. In this case, we have a cluster A and cluster B, and we have a point C over here, right? You might be seeing it inverted, but you get the idea, right? So cluster A and cluster B are there, and both of these have a point which we call the centroid. Okay, once we have the centroid, what we do is we calculate the distance between the point which we just introduced in the plane, which in our case is the point C, and we calculate the distance between the centroid of A and C and centroid of B and C. The distance which is the least, for example, let's say the distance between A and C was the least, so C goes and becomes a part of A. This is how k-means basically works. Whenever we introduce a new point to cluster A or cluster B, we change the centroid of the cluster. By changing, I mean we update the centroid of the cluster so that whenever a new point comes, we have an updated centroid for that particular cluster. Now the main thing that we need to focus here is the distance. The distance between 2 points is calculated using the distance formula, which in our case will be the Euclidean distance. The formula is pretty simple, that is under root of x1 minus x2 to the whole square plus y1 minus y2 to the whole square, where x1, y1 and x2, y2 are the coordinates, the centroid of a particular cluster and the point that we have just introduced. We keep repeating this process until we have segmented or clustered all of these points that we have in our data into separate groups. And that's pretty much how k-means work. You have a new point, you already have determined the number of clusters that you have, and when you bring a new point into the plane, you calculate the distance between the centroid of a particular cluster with the new point that you have introduced in the plane, the distance with which it is the least, the point goes and becomes a part of that particular cluster, and then we update the centroid, and we keep repeating this process until all the points are covered. I hope this was pretty clear on what k-means does. K-means, very simple idea, just keep one thing in mind, is that you take these various spread out data points, you group them into their categories, and that is what your clusters are. So that was it for k-means clustering, and I hope you enjoyed this.